Welcome indeed. It is my first time speaking here, but I'm actually one of those old dinosaurs from the Crypto Valley. I've been one of the earlier investors in Bitcoin in 2011. I take a very sober approach actually to blockchain technology, and just to tell you a short story, at Bitcoin Swiss I started to offer Bitcoin courses, classes to teach people what this asset is and why it works. People were not interested in why it works and how it works. They just wanted to know what the price will be tomorrow. I didn't know. I just tried to explain them it's a good asset because the technology works, right? Anyway, I'm CEO of CoreLedger, and as I said, I take a sober approach. Our company is actually a technology company. We build software. And also here, why would companies use blockchain technology? Because they make a profit with it, right? We are not doing much in the meme coin space, actually nothing. So everything that we do is industry focused. That's the tough path of fostering industry adoption. So how do you make money with blockchain technology? Either if you already have a business and use the technology to make your business processes cheaper, more efficient, faster, whatever. Or you have a totally new business idea, of course. We are serving many startups also with our technology. Or, of course, you could try to attract a new audience, the digital natives, so to speak. And we have realized that data, of course, has a lot of value. In other words, what we are providing is actually a software platform. And also here, very pragmatic, right? If you want to build some blockchain software, and I'm not talking about tokens. Issuing a token is something everybody and his dog can do today. Really, it's simple. So a token contract is simple. I'm talking about apps, about web applications, about really elaborate software like track and trace software, smart locks, certificates, or serving the circular economy with proof of origin, proof of authenticity and such stuff. So that's complex. And if you want to build that, then normally you invest a lot of money into this 80% stack underneath, which no end user will ever want to know. Remember my analogy with Bitcoin, nobody wants to know how it works, right? They only want to see something nice on top and they want to make money with it. Therefore, the solution to the problem that we bring is we have all this technology stack like a middleware. Our customers can use this middleware and then just build the nice front end on top. So, the companies we have here as a reference, they are mostly from the real-world asset space. For example, SWIC, they are tokenizing equity, fine metal, tokenizing gold. I brought these two examples also as use cases here. iVault is circular economy, Terry's is real asset tokenization. Finca token was actually the first revenue share token in Switzerland. Also very interesting from a tax standpoint because it took them some time to solve everything, but actually they solved it. Notarization, block sense is a battery passport, so proof of authenticity. Then also tokenization of gemstones, also very interesting use case. Actually, it's very much down to earth. So most of these use cases are pretty much understandable. There is no hot air in it. And we are using also state-of-the-art technology to build software. Now, one of those things that most people get wrong is actually the benefits, the supposed benefits of tokenizing real-world assets. Maybe you know them, right? You can tap into some liquidity. No, you can't. Liquidity is not there for you. So if you tokenize real estate, then all those liquidity pools will not include your token. You cannot drain it there. So, nope. That doesn't work. Or if you believe that a real-world asset must be much better than a meme coin because it's backed by some real-world asset. Well, that's true that it's backed by a real-world asset, but that's not really an advantage. I will show you how and why. And also the idea that everybody is now working on such a project. Well, there are many who talk about projects, but only few who really do it because it's a major effort, especially in the legal area. Now, some things that are also kind of common knowledge why real-world asset projects are really challenging are these. The first one is regulation. I don't know how many of you believe that regulation is there to protect customers. then we're in sync. Because actually it's not the case. No. It's there to protect markets. Now imagine, we are talking about real world assets, real estate, some gold, for example, and so forth. They are there since centuries. So regulators, under quotes, in whatever form they came, had all this time to create regulation. And then came crypto, so that comes on top. Therefore, it's especially hard to tokenize real-world assets because you have the real-world regulation and the crypto regulation. And then the second one is the product market fit. So what I will show you in the next slide is actually that most people misunderstand exactly this. They want to create a product for a target group which is not interested in that product, definitely not. And some extra considerations, for example, the extra costs that are incurred by tokenization. So we had a case where adding up all the costs for various service providers, for audits, storage, physical validation, and so forth, was actually more than just selling a paper product. And then they just didn't do it, right? But these things also need to be considered, or some factors such as you cannot just tokenize real-world asset ownership, or ownership at all, because that mostly needs some entry in a ledger that is physical, like a piece of paper, right? And regulation has not caught up yet with that. So for example, real estate, you cannot insert 100 people who part own some piece of real estate in the land registry. Maybe you can if there's enough space, right? But it's not made for that. And therefore you mostly need an SPV, but this also adds some cost. The most important thing, however, is the product market fit. So in most cases, no, wait, there are two types of investors. One, the crypto investor. These are the original guys, right, who invested in meme coins. They have no problem with the speculative character of this. And also they have no problem with the risk associated with this investment. No problem to lose everything, because there's also the chance to win like tenfold, tenfold is even low, right? Like 100-fold, 1,000-fold. When I entered Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin was 4 euros. I recently met somebody who also bought it for euros, so that's pretty rare, actually. Where's the Bitcoin price now? 25,000-fold, right? So this is the kind of investment revenue that people expect there. Of course, they also risk that it can drop to zero, but for this, they invest in many different coins at the same time, right? And they are crypto savvy, so they know how to work on decentralized exchanges. They handle their own wallets, everything fine. KYC AML is a hurdle, though, for various reasons. The traditional investor on the other side, he doesn't want to lose money. So they are fine with a small profit on top. They have no problem with KYC AML. They are traditional. They have nothing to hide, everything fine. And now look at the products. We have the meme coin on the one side. That's kind of the Trump token. Did anybody of you buy a Trump token? Oh, that's honest, thanks. Just one? Okay. Anyway, so there's no substance, right? I mean, there's just air, hot air. But nonetheless, it allows you to actually profit massively, because there is no way to judge what it's really worth. What is Trump token worth? Zero, actually. But, well, sometimes even $70. I don't know, what was max? So it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's now down, right? So, of course, they invest in that super product, because it's highly volatile, it quickly changes price, and well, it can go to zero, but also to the moon. On the other side, the real-world asset token, just imagine, how would a real estate object drop to zero? It can burn down, right? But still you have insurance. But how can it double in value? Well, it's hard. I mean, right investment, right place, and some legal actions around there which improve the neighborhood and so forth. But actually, it's also not highly volatile. So the price is pretty stable. It's a stable coin, in fact. Now, the crypto investor will never invest in that product. It's not volatile, it's not interesting. There's no gambling in it, zero. So if people believe this is a huge investor group, no way, it doesn't work, they don't buy that. On the other side, the traditional investor doesn't buy meme coins for obvious reasons. Now, trying to sell traditional investors who are a little bit suspicious about everything blockchain, something that is a token, is difficult. So it's not a thumbs up, right? It's something that means, okay, you need to consider it properly. some things, I mentioned them before, but people also forget, because there's a huge hype, so to speak, with tokenizing real estate, is that it's often, as I said, not possible to just tokenize it. You're going to tokenize ownership, so you need an SPV. That's extra cost. Or some things that you can actually not really own in that sense, like sneakers. It's usage, right? No. So some parts are excluded. Or costs for custodians, or we just recently had that. If I tokenize building and only 10% of the building is actually sold, what about the other 90%? Because there was a business case behind, right? I want to raise some money for whatever project. I only sell a part. What do? Do I revert the trades, give back the money? I mean, of course, it needs to be handled somehow in the terms and conditions, right? But that's something people need to think about. And the liquidity of the market is important. You cannot tap into liquidity pools. Okay, you can, but it costs a lot of money, right? So it doesn't really make money. Make sense. You can buy back your own token, but that also doesn't make much sense. There are also licenses and so forth. So just to put in a nutshell, the real pitfalls there, assuming that you can make an illiquid asset liquid, nope, it doesn't work. Marketing purposes, that worked for some time, but it doesn't. So to speak with the analogy of the speakers before me, this train has not just arrived at the station, it has already been disassembled. It's just pieces. Raising money for a yet-to-be-built object, difficult. So it needs to be sold properly. Existing company tokenization for an exit, well, if it's already successful, you will exit anyway. It's still possible, but what works nicely is actually having an existing business and then saying, well, I want to increase the size of my audience by tokenization. I'll show you how. The rest is also clear. Competitors do it. No, don't do just something because competitors do it, because they have their own business case. Blockchain technology allows for cost savings, that's true. Sometimes if the transfer of ownership is done on blockchain instead of doing all this difficult notarization process, that can be cheaper, but you have to calculate the entire cost. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Voting, I have to discourage most people because voting is not relevant for most people. I mean, this is more for the younger generation, right? Oh, we build a DAO so people can vote. Doesn't work. I mean, at least from our knowledge, right? It often doesn't work. Fractionalization sometimes can work, so this is an important thing, having smaller amounts. I will also show you in a case how that works and why. And then some investment opportunities, like you can invest in real estate abroad. If you can prove the value of those objects abroad, maybe it works, but yeah, it's also some effort to do it. And decentralization is often not an issue because we are talking about real assets, right? So they are centralized anyway. There's a building somewhere, somebody is taking care of that building, it's centralized. So the DeFi aspect doesn't help much. Did I discourage already somebody? I hope not. Okay, how they can work. So I brought two cases, we have many of them. Just examples. I mean, if you're an expert in your field, such as you buy real estate, low, sell it high, 5 years later or something, and you have a proven track record, then of course you might wish to get some money from the market in order to purchase a certain high-priced object. What investors would like to do is participate in these gains because you have a track record, right? So of course you have proven that you can make money and they want to participate without much risk. You don't want to tokenize your entire company, just one object. So therefore you don't sell equity. Then tokenization is actually a good way to do it. It's self-liquidating. After a couple of years, it's just sold, people get their money, everybody happy, works. Another thing is like usufruct, the right to get some benefits from co-owning something. That could be using a condo somewhere or whatever, like an apple tree, right? You get some apples. That's a bad example, but the point is if I have a vacation home somewhere, I don't use it for the entire year. I could, for example, tokenize the usage right, not the ownership, the usage right. People get tokens for using it. We have also a solution for smart locks. So in theory, the token could even unlock the lock as long as it's valid and so forth. And that's also a clear benefit, right? You don't want to own the entire building. You just want to have a the right to use it. And if you split it amongst many parties, not just 2 or 3 families, but 10, 20, 30, token is a good way. Or you tokenize, in that sense, 1 object out of 20, and then you get more traction because you attract new audience, right? And they say, hey, wait, I can buy one of these things. Oh, super. So that would be one remainder of marketing. And some bespoke challenges, such as bridging the gap between crypto and real-world tokens, so to speak. Therefore, you tokenize, or also being able to offer saving plans. I'll show that later. Now, something very special that we developed, and you will also understand why we did it. We served, actually one of our first customers, Fine Metal. They wanted to tokenize gold because, of course, gold, I mean, one of those oldest assets, right? And having a gold token is also kind of a stable coin. The only disadvantage actually was, the only disadvantage was that this became a security token, and the security token was not tradable. And then basically we went back to the drawing room and said, what is actually relevant? And for the customers, the one thing that was relevant, or 2 things were relevant: 24/7 tradability, so they really wanted to sell whenever they felt like it, and fractionalization, so they didn't want to buy entire ounces or kilograms of gold because that's expensive. They wanted to buy with a very low amount, like 50 francs, 100 francs, with no overhead. And that's exactly what we built for Fine Metal. And we also removed this problem that the token became a security token by not tokenizing at all. What we did was creating so-called non-fungible assets. So that's a personalized asset. There are fungible units for each of the customers, but actually the digital asset is just a piece of paper, actually. Okay, an electronic piece of paper. So what was formerly a storage certificate, like not a contract, but a piece of paper saying, Johannes Schweifer has 3 ounces of gold stored with Fine Metal, became a digital artifact on blockchain. And this digital artifact also was associated with a private key, and that is associated with a private key, and this private key is allowed to also sell that token. Because it is a document, it's not a token, it doesn't fall under any regulation, and the only limitation is it's not transferable between customers, at least not so easily. And that's it, right? So the solution is actually super down to earth. It's a digital artifact that guarantees you that the gold is there, that it belongs to you, that you can always sell it or even redeem it in physical shape. The reason why this also doesn't need much proof, actually there is audits, is because Fine Metal is already in the market since 1999. They do this business already, and for them this is an additional way to get new audience, also the crypto-savvy audience, right? If they want to check out some of their crypto gains into real-world assets. We can do this with a lot of different assets. We have the technology for that. So it's we can even do it with durable food. You can check out the success story on our website, and just to give you an illustration what our software can provide you with is this. So website, app, cards, and whatnot else was done in a matter of, I think, 2 weeks all in all. So it's super simple and actually super straightforward. The last case I want to present in my last 30 seconds is actually out of the microfinance area, and here this is Zwick, and they built the Tuki app, and the Tuki app is also built on the CoreLedger Theos platform. The Tuki app is about allowing people to buy fractionalized equity. Why? Because actually savings rate is quite low in the country where this was launched. People don't save much because it's also difficult to get into interesting products because there's a threshold, right? You have to buy entire shares of a minimum amount. And by tokenizing this, the threshold went as low as I think a couple of dollars or even less. So one big benefit in this sense is that they could also allow for saving plans. So people could, for example, buy into interesting financial products through tokenization, like $50 a month or something, and then simply save on to a certain goal. There's also a gentleman from SWIC here in the audience, so maybe if you have some questions how that works, it's actually tokenizing of equity, one of those interesting elements of real-world asset tokenization. And that's it. Thank you very much for listening and also for your endurance, because it's quite late. Thanks.